Welcome, 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 Cleveland Browns fans. Happy Tuesday. My name is Joe Mazzulla. My man here, Pete Smith. We are here with the OBR streaming network breaking down week one, Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals. Pete, long time no talk, brother. How you been?
Yeah, I'm glad some of us could show up for work and make this happen. And I'm glad that you're learning technology on the fly.
On the fly. On the flyest of the fly. Yeah. No, last week I will take the fault for last week, guys. Completely my fault. Life got in the way. Couldn't really make it happen. Good to see that Pete is as understanding as ever. And let's go. Week one. So before we get too far into week one, Peter, was there anything more depressing than watching those two absolute juggernauts Sunday night, realizing just how far away at the quarterback position the Cleveland Browns are?
I mean, yes, but like it's also this thing where like you watch the Baltimore Ravens completely melt down and do the exact same thing the Browns did. They just did it in a far less cartoonish manner. They choked away a game the way I guess you're supposed to do it, as opposed to the way the Browns did it with finding ways to tipped balls up twice in a game to get intercepted and miss kicks, whereas the Ravens just flat out gagged in a way that was more reminiscent of like when the Browns gave it up to the Jets when Joe Flacco was playing for them. But yeah, I mean, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are fantastic. And look, if it does anything else, it sort of reinforces the point that you're sitting there like you're like watching and you're going, I want to see Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. Okay, fine. But like what you're really looking for is an alien at quarterback that can do the things those guys do. It may not be necessarily the supreme athlete guy, but somebody who has that type of presence that can take over a football game, because that's what you need to win the Super Bowl. Bear in mind that neither of them have won the Super Bowl, and that's just how difficult it is. So when you're sitting here, you're trying to like talk yourself into lesser quarterbacks, that's how good you need to be, and you still have to get some good fortune to win it all.
Amen to that. I think it's tough to really verbalize just how many stars have to align in a season for a team to go all the way, and what makes what the Patriots and the Chiefs of the last 30 years even more impressive. But either way, that's completely off topic. Let's focus on the situation at hand. Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals. Look, this game went pretty similar to the way you and I both thought it would go. We thought the defense would keep it close. We thought we had a chance to win this. At the end of the day, the Browns shot themselves in the foot. The Bengals did not. There you go with the 1-point loss.
Yeah, I mean, going to the season, I thought the Browns were going to steal the Steelers' identity. They did it. And the thing I think I was sort of struck by is Kevin Stefanski in his post-game press conference basically said that really wasn't what they wanted to do. It just how it worked out, that they obviously wanted to score more points, wanted to be more explosive. Yeah. So I'm curious to see where that's going to go and how much of that was the Bengals taking things away and trying to make sure that the Browns didn't get big plays. Because there were clearly times where you could see Joe Flacco looking down the field longingly at things he would have liked to have thrown, and credit to him showing some discretion and then taking some underneath shots, getting the ball to where it needed to be to keep the drive going, because seemingly he had bought into this idea that, look, if I just don't throw the game away, I'm going to get opportunities. And that was true. But, we saw I think we saw teasing of things the Browns want to get going. Like, if you look at it, you saw Isaiah Bond catch one ball on a quick screen, but they kept putting him out there and then shifting him in ways that forced the Bengals defense to make choices and using Isaiah Bond, using Dylan Sampson, using Harold Fannin as guys to force the Bengals to make choices and declare their matchups, which obviously worked out for them in a lot of ways because that gave them the ability to find open receivers and proved to be a way to sort of circumvent the fact they didn't really run the ball well. And that's clearly going to be something that, if I go back to that Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson shootout on primetime, it was a lot of the same stuff, but the Browns initially got stopped a lot early in that game. And all of a sudden they started using empty and putting guys like, in that point, Kareem Hunt all the way outside and forcing Marlon Humphrey to cover him and opening up a whole bunch of stuff in the middle. I think some of those same ingredients are there to do those things against the Ravens, but you saw it against the Bengals, and it created opportunities for guys to make plays. We saw a return to what I think Kevin Stefanski's always wanted to be. In a lot of ways, I think he's the anti-Kyle Shanahan, or at least what Kyle Shanahan from when he was with the Houston Texans and when the Browns, when he had Josh Gordon and he had Andre Johnson, where his whole offense seemed to be, I'm going to find ways to get these primetime players the ball, get them open, find a way to make it happen over and over and over again. Kevin Stefanski's approach has always been, I'm going to try to get my guys open, but if you're going to take all this stuff away and you're going to leave these other guys open, I'm just going to take it. So your response is, okay, you're going to take away Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku. I totally get it. I'm just going to throw the ball to Dylan Sampson and Harold Fannin and move the ball that way.
Yeah. And, they were effective. I mean, we know Fannin set the, week one rookie record for tight end receptions with Tyler Warren this week with 7. I figured he would be involved, and I figured they would look to involve him. But, man, he played a lot of snaps. And he was it wasn't that he had the catches and the targets. There were plays that Flacco wanted to go there and didn't. Like, Flacco looks his way. Flacco was almost, I felt like he was like moderately locked onto him in the first half, which I mean, I think is a great sign for things to come with him, especially working off of David Njoku. And I love him as a big slot. I love moving around in the backfield, playing some fullback. It's a real chess piece, man. This is an exciting addition.
It's not easy to say, hey, we're gonna let this 21-year-old kid do all this stuff. And they did it with him, and they did it with Sampson, who's not even 21.
Yep.
That's a lot of trust. It's a lot of trust from your head coach, a lot of trust from your quarterback to be able to do that. I mean, it looked like Joe Flacco was throwing to his kids, but that's fine. It worked. But yeah, I mean, it would have been very easy for Kevin Stefanski to sort of say, we're gonna ease our way into this thing, and we're gonna let it figure it out. And whatever Fannin has been doing throughout training camp and Sampson has been doing it throughout training camp, they've earned enough trust. And look, I suspect if they went to him a couple of times, he dropped the ball, maybe they minimize it. But the fact of the matter is he kept rewarding them, and so they kept pushing it to him. And then the same thing with Sampson. So all of a sudden, you come into this season, and look, the offense has a long way to go in certain respects. But you come in the season, you go, they got Jerry Jeudy, they got David Njoku. I don't know about this running game. Who else is going to step up? And you're heading into week 2 going, okay, I've got Harold Fannin making big contributions. I've got Dylan Sampson, who was one catch short of Eric Metcalf's record with the Browns, or some record, 9 catches in a game. And now you're sitting here going into week 2 going, well, how are they going to use these guys? And maybe it will change. Maybe it won't be the same. But to your point, I don't see why it wouldn't. They did nothing but pay it off and make you feel better about them continuing to get bigger roles in this offense.
Let me ask you this, because obviously we're going to touch on Flacco and his performance on Sunday, but let's talk about the running game, because the numbers were putrid. It was really, really bad. I think outside of a couple of off-tackle things where Sampson was able to just hit the hole quickly and get 4, 5, 6 yards out of that, there was nothing. Now, is this a concern moving forward? Is this maybe something that Quinshon Judkins can, patch up a little bit with his just sheer size and talent and athleticism? Or is it going to be an ongoing thing all year? Because I'll tell you, for the last 3 seasons, I've complained about the physicality of the Bitonio, Posick, and Teller interior of an offensive line, and that did not look any better against Cincinnati. Granted, Cincinnati's got some size up front, and they're pretty stout up front, but still, this is a defense that was historically bad a year ago. New coach, new scheme, new season's always going to kind of refresh those things. But where are you with the running game, and how much of a worry is this for you moving forward?
It's alarming. There's no way to get around it. The first play of the game was their longest run of the day, 5 yards. That was it. That was the best they had to offer. Look, I am worried about what I saw physicality wise. I'm obviously losing Jack Conklin after the first series played some kind of role. Cornelius Lucas is a very good, pass protector. I don't sit here and look at him as a killer in the running game. Wyatt Teller had a couple pancakes and does what he does. I put this in alarmed, given what I expect from Cincinnati and given what I'm about to see from Baltimore with a bunch of big hog mollies in the middle and what they have. Having said that, I watched a lot of awful offensive line play in the NFL for week 1. Awful. And that is typically how this thing goes, because it's very difficult to really simulate run blocking in a way that's true. Preseason doesn't do it. Practice doesn't really do it. It takes until you get into the regular season and really getting into it and getting used to adjustments and all these other things. So the biggest improvement should be from week 1 to week 2. Can they make those adjustments? How much of this was just not blocking guys appropriately, which happened too much? How much of this is just running backs hitting the holes? I mean, the key example I will look at is 3rd down by the goal line. If Raheem Sanders follows Joe Bitonio, he walks in the end zone untouched. Instead, he goes to the right and gets stuffed. They ultimately score, but nevertheless, you see that's the most glaring example you can see. He just did not run where he should have.
Yeah.
And how much of this is just getting accustomed to, just getting into this thing? DeJuan Jones, I think he's going to prove to be an adequate pass blocker at a left tackle, which is all I need a left tackle to be able to do. I would like him to be a better run blocker. I just don't know if it's ever going to happen. The rest of these guys, it's got to be better. It's got to be more in sync. Getting the Jack Conklin element back. Yes, Quinshon Judkins can help. However, I don't think Quinshon Judkins is a guy that is going to I don't think he's going to make your line better. I think he's going to get the most out of what your line gives you. His physical tools are out of this world. But in terms of like vision and his ability to create, I don't get that. Having watched all of his tape, I never got the sense that he was super creative. Or look, he's not Nick Chubb. Like, it's unfair to make that comparison. Even coming out of college, he was otherworldly. I still don't know how a certain GM wanted to take Rashad Penny over him and was disappointed when the Seahawks took him to get Nick Chubb. But that's fine. Quinshon Judkins can be very successful. It's just ultimately the way, and this is what the Browns want anyway. They want their line to do most of the work. And that's going to be difficult as currently constituted unless we see a major improvement. So hopefully that can happen. I have some concern that this is just what Joel Bitonio is at this age. Fantastic pass protector, more of a get in the way positional run blocker as opposed to a guy that can really drive people off the ball anymore. That's never been Posick. He's never been an overly physical guy, and you've relied on Wyatt Teller, and then not having Jack Conklin as the other bully hurts you. But do I sit here and go, oh man, get ready, Ravens, you're going to get your asses knocked back off the ball? No, I do not. So I have real concern about that. I am sort of happy with the fact that the Browns found ways to work around it with Dylan Sampson as a receiver, with Harold Fannin as a receiver, that sort of helps eliminate the issue. But one, they just got to run the ball better. And two, they've got to find ways to get the defense to take guys out of the box. They've done it horizontally to this point. At some point, it's going to involve being able to do more things vertically down the field. Now, early in that first drive the Browns had was a complete slog. I, in some ways, think it was miraculous that they scored a touchdown. Fortunately, and I was very worried about that initially because last year it was, hey, the first drive goes great, they score, and then it goes just worse from there. So I was happy that we saw it go from really bad first drive to actually the offense got a little bit better as we saw more explosives. We saw things open up a little bit more. Hopefully that means if it's Jerry Jeudy going down the field, if it's David Njoku and Harold Fannin creating space, if it's the Isaiah Bond element, that something can force defenses to be more worried about taking away the deep area of the field, having a safety's back, and that the Browns can start to find ways to create numbers advantages and do those type of things to help them. The other thing they can do, and I'll be curious if they start to employ it, I'm surprised we didn't see it, was just putting Tevin Jenkins out there as an extra tight end and just running behind them. Other than when we saw Aiden Huntington and Harold Fannin and those guys and Raheem Sanders at the goal line, I don't know that we saw much in terms of a jumbo look.
Yeah, I don't remember specifically when it happened in the game, but out of the snap counts on the offense, Mason Graham got a snap on offense. I didn't catch that during the game, though.
I think that's a typo that it was that was Huntington, but I could be mistaken.
Well, they had Huntington had 3 snaps, and they had Mason Graham as for 1. So again, it could have been a typo, and I didn't see it, so I couldn't even point to when it happened. So we're getting Judkins back this week. Now, how long do you think it would take him? I mean, because physically we don't know, right? We assume that he stayed in shape. He's kind of like you referred to him very accurately as an alien before. He's a physical specimen through the roof, but obviously game shape is different than, just being in shape. So however long it takes him to ramp up physically is one thing, but running back's a pretty quick transition from college to the NFL. It's one of the easier ones, I think, for all these positions. So how long do you think it would be before he's ready to kind of assume the lead in that backfield?
Whoa, those are 2 different questions. How long do I think it's going to take him to get on the field?
Yeah, because
suspect
I know. Well, I wasn't asking the physical thing because we
yeah,
just don't know that yet, But it like mentally, like I mean, this could be relatively quick. No.
I would think so because they
Yeah.
had already installed a lot for him in the spring. They were already fully prepared to put a significant amount of on his plate.
Mm-hmm.
My best guess, and Kevin Stefanski sort of left this wide open, I think, smartly because he's not, if he's that surprised that like Quinshon Judkins shows up to practice on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and just dominates, and you sit and go, well, we're putting him on the field because we just can't not. Yeah. Or seemingly they're going to use the full 2 weeks to get him fully acclimated and get him comfortable so it doesn't feel like they're just rushing him out there and putting him, I don't want to say in danger necessarily, but just being smart about it. So I'm sort of cautiously expecting him to be activated for the Green Bay game. How long does it take for him to sort of become the major back? I'm guessing a game. He gets one game in, they sort of get him going, and then as soon as it starts to look good, however long that takes, if it's a game, if it's 2 games or whatever, that as soon as he's ready to go, they clearly have a huge amount of the offense waiting for him. Dylan Sampson can do a whole lot of things, and I think the Browns, part of what they want him to do is have both those guys on the field at the same time to create different dynamics. But he's just there's 25 pounds difference between these two dudes, and there are just too many situations that the Browns want that strength, and they're not getting it. We'll see if I'm hoping that we'll see more from Raheem Sanders than we saw in week 1. Mm-hmm. We couldn't have seen less in terms of impact from Jerome Ford. So, whether the Browns are just ready to move on and say we've had enough of this, we're going with Raheem, or if this is Jerome Ford's basically last stand, it's got to be ready to go. But not having that bigger back presence. Clearly something that bothers them because they showed you they want to be able to do that. Huntington, Fannin in the backfield, giving it to a bigger back. The fact that when they had the opportunity, they claimed a 220-pound running back tells you everything you need to know about what they feel like they're missing.
Yeah. Yeah. So before we go into quarterbacks, thank you guys again for joining us out there. Always appreciated. We are on behalf of the OBR streaming network. Check out OBR.com whenever you get the chance. The exclusive access to the insider forums, Ask the Insiders with Lane Adkins and Fred Greetham, college football transfer portal drama, all that stuff for 247 Sports Network. And after you renew, you get Paramount Plus for free, which is fantastic. It's a hell of a deal. All right, moving on back to quarterbacks. We were talking about Flacco a little bit earlier. What grade would you give Joe Flacco for his performance on Sunday?
Probably just a solid B, somewhere in that neighborhood. I mean, he justified why he's playing. And that the biggest thing he did was he allowed all these other guys to work. Like, you got to see 15 combined receptions with Dylan Sampson and Harold Fannin because he knows how to operate. For the sake of argument, let's say a rookie was in there, or God forbid, Deshaun Watson like last year, and you have no idea what anyone could do because the offense doesn't go. And that's not to say that necessarily Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders couldn't operate the offense. It's just that's the risk you run. Yeah. Joe Flacco gives you that comfort of knowing we're going to be able to run this. We're going to have somebody capable, competent, knowing where the ball's supposed to go, and giving these guys a chance to show you what they can do. And the early return was that you feel like you have more playmakers than you did going into the week, which is certainly positive. Did we get a bunch of great plays? Not really. We got a couple of really nice plays. The touchdown to Cedric Tillman was good. The 25-yard pass to Tillman was good. The ball that I suppose the riskiest ball he threw was the one he fit in between a couple guys to Njoku, who then dragged half the Bengals down the field.
Yep.
I don't feel like I don't feel like he missed anything too critical. I mean, the thing that Joe himself sort of knocked himself on was the throws that resulted in picks. That the fact that the balls were low, the fact that they weren't necessarily where they needed to be, allowed those situations to happen. Even though ultimately those are balls that could have been caught. perhaps should have been caught. Jerry Judy's flat out saying should have been caught. 4th and 5, he puts the ball right in the money. Jerry Judy's got to catch that ball. He didn't.
Agreed.
So, look, Joe Flacco did more than enough to win. He didn't take over the game. He didn't do anything spectacular. That's why I would say it's a B. But B was more than enough to win, and obviously wasn't because of other factors.
You bring up a really good point that I think gets lost on a lot of people, whether it's fans clamoring to see the young quarterbacks, or the national media or the local media clamoring to see these young quarterbacks. And I thought you hit it right on the head. I would rather develop the entire young offense that needs to develop rather than try to develop a quarterback and have everybody stuck in neutral trying to figure it out. I mean, realistically, these kids are going to get a chance eventually in some capacity. At this point, I don't care if it's this year or not. I really don't. They'll have opportunities sometime down the line, but as of right now, Joe Flacco's he's a good quarterback. He doesn't have much of a future because of his age, but you can't look at him in his body of work and how he plays the game right now. He's a solid starter. You could do a hell of a lot worse than Joe Flacco. And it's almost kind of like Jameis was a year ago. Flacco's got the ability to put the ball all over the field. If the defense opens it up, he can hit anybody at any point on the field. He can make this a prolific passing game. We saw it in 2023. I feel like all this quarterback stuff needs to just go away and just let these young kids, let the Harold Fannons and the Dylan Sampsons, let Jamari Thrash get reps, Isaiah Bond. Like, all of these guys are getting these opportunities because of Flacco and his ability to spread the ball around. I don't know if a rookie can do that, especially not this early. And I'm in no rush to see it, man.
Right. At some point, maybe we'll get the Indianapolis Colts version of Joe Flacco, but it certainly wasn't this week. And then maybe there's a conversation, and that could happen against the Ravens. But until then, the Browns had 4 receivers with 60 yards plus in their opening week. I don't think anyone would have expected that. And you're not sitting there asking questions about what can Harold Fannin do. You're not asking questions about what Dylan Sampson can do. Now, you are wondering, where is Jamari Thrash going to fit into this thing, or when is he going to fit in this thing? But that's a more reasonable question to the circumstance, as opposed to, and again, I'll use Deshaun Watson as the example because we just don't know with Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders other than what we can perhaps accurately project. When Deshaun was on the field last year, it felt like they had 9 guys on offense, and there were guys who just weren't in the game, and you had guys that were just completely frustrated. I mean, Jerry Jeudy got to a point where he was completely frustrated last year before Jameis Winston helped turn him around, and suddenly he goes off and is one of the best receivers in the league. We didn't get that yesterday, but certainly Jerry Jeudy failed on his own merits, as opposed to not getting the opportunity to make those plays. So how is he going to respond? We'll see. Are we going to see more from Jamari Thrash? Are we going to see more from Isaiah Bond? Okay, those are fine, reasonable questions to ask. I assume we're going to see more from them as we get going. But the fact of the matter is we are excited about rookies right out of the gate who can come in and play. And now we're sitting here going, what else are they going to do? What's next for these guys? And adding Quinshon Judkins into the mix. If and when these rookies take over, you're going to have this whatever Joe Flacco does until he's not playing anymore, contrasted against what they can offer. And if your immediate reaction is, let's look at JJ McCarthy last night, or Caleb Williams, who's in his go, they are leaving plays on the field because they just don't have enough experience at this point. And that is something the Browns can't afford right now. And yes, we need to see the Browns project for this year is significantly better than the 3rd and 5th round pick that they had at quarterback. They have a lot of guys. And the fact of the matter is, you got contributions for, by my count, 7 rookies in that game, which is a ridiculous number. I mean, that element is like, as disappointing as this loss is, and it is, everything that comes with it and the schedule and everything else, getting that win would have been huge. To then sit here and talk about all the things you can be excited about, the fact that 7 rookies were on the field and able to contribute positively is huge for the future of this team. Joe Flacco being 40 is the one element you sit there and go, this might not fit, but it's important for all these other guys to be able to operate.
Yeah, agreed. And, it's funny because, like you said, going into last week, you're comfortable with Judy, you're comfortable with Njoku, and we like what we saw in limited capacity a year ago before the concussion knocked Tillman out for the remainder of the year. But there's a lot of questions. And now going into week 2, I feel like we're wondering about Thrash and Bond. I mean, that's options 5 and 6 in the passing game. That's not including Dylan Sampson out of the backfield. So you're essentially talking about potentially the 6th or 7th option in the passing game. It's a nice spot to be in. Having 2 tight ends with that size and that physicality, that's a damn good deal. And I love what I saw out of Tillman. I love his physicality. I forgot at what point in the game it was. He made that 3rd down catch and just got drilled. And that is what I wanted to see from him. Be a big body going over the middle, taking tough hits, making tough catches. That was huge. And huge for me for his development. That's exactly what we want to see from that kid.
Well, fortunately, at practically 220, he's doing most of the hitting in that scenario. But look, the bottom line is, like, again, once you get past those top 3 guys, which are, Judy, Tillman, and Njoku, and however you want to word of them, everything else was a question. And now, you sit here and go, well, why are they taking another tight end, and why are you taking a running back like Dylan Sampson when you just took Judkins? Because there are matchup problems. And every team has to figure out how they're going to deal with these guys. I was jealous of the Ravens when they took Isaiah Likely, because you don't have a whole lot of teams that can cover 1 tight end effectively, let alone 2. And a running back like Dylan Sampson is not something you just, I can put a corner on, because he's now 200 pounds and he can make guys miss and do all these other things. So you have to, it puts pressure on your defense to figure out how you're going to deal with this. And the Browns exploited it. They kept shifting formations, and the Bengals had to make choices. And I think the Browns are going to continue to do that and see where it goes. Now, ultimately, if you look down the road and the Browns can continue to add more receiving talent, it's only going to make this thing better. I'm certainly not sitting and going, I guess the Browns are done at wide receiver. It's just that having the strengths you have at these other positions just opens things up for the rest of the offense and gives you more options.
Agreed. Special thanks again to the OBR streaming network. And if you guys find the time, weekdays at 6 p.m., we've got Browns 3D with Jeff Lloyd. Always a banger. Jeff does a phenomenal job. He had Dan Moore from ESPN on the show earlier today, I do believe. So check that one out. That's going to be a good one. So we touched a little bit on the offensive line a little earlier. So one thing that I would have liked to have seen, because we talked about Cornelius Lucas taking over at right tackle for Conklin. With the struggles of the running game, I would love to see them kick Tevin Jenkins out there. We know that he's got some tackle experience. And I don't want to put him on an island in pass protection, obviously, but I feel like that could help boost the running game in the event that Conklin goes down again.
Yeah, to me, I'd rather have him as a tight end.
Yeah.
As an extra. And I don't know how much, and it's unclear. Who knows? Maybe there was a plan with Conklin in the game that they'd put Tevin Jenkins next to him, flank him, and have more power there. I don't know if that necessarily fits with having Cornelius Lucas, or if the fact that you had to go to Cornelius Lucas then told you, well, we can't risk having both guys out there and having one of them get rolled up on or something, and then being screwed. So I don't know how much the Conklin injury sort of changed the dynamic, but yes, I would like them to use Tevin Jenkins as an extra blocker, especially next to Jack Conklin with Wyatt Teller, to give you more power. And looking at it against the Ravens, doing essentially what they did in the now famed Week 10 game in 2023, where they just said, screw it, we're going to run right over and over and over again, and see what you can do about it. So I'm hoping that we're going to see some of those things mixed in. The fact that you can put Aiden Huntington in the backfield is certainly helpful. He has limited experience so far. It's basically just block and surge up the middle. I was a fan of the use of Raheem Sanders as an up back to be able to give him a quick trap. But if there's a world where Aiden Huntington can do more Pat Ricard things, that becomes a little bit more interesting. But do they want to use more beef? I can't imagine the offensive line coach Mike Bloomgren is sitting there going, no, I don't want more linemen on the field. But what does that look like? Are they waiting for Quinshon for that? Is that the thing they want, where they want to have all the big guys on the field at the same time, and that's what they're saving for? Unclear at this point. But yes, I think that becomes a way for them to help if the running game doesn't get better in a hurry.
Okay. So shifting over to the other side of the ball, because I've been waiting to talk about the defense. So by my count, we had 5 first-time starters on that defense on Sunday. And holding the Cincinnati Bengals to a total of 7 net yards in the second half is pretty damn impressive. What was your take on the defense on Sunday?
Well, I'm trying to think. Carson Schwessinger, Mason Graham, Malik Collins, Ronnie Hickman. Who's your 5th? Is it Bush?
Oh, so with my first-time starters thing was Mo Diabate at outside linebacker, Schwessinger inside. Well, I mean, in the 3 linebacker sets he started. Okay. That was my more. And then Isaiah McGuire did start games last year, but he's essentially a first-time starter going into the season. So that was pretty much it. The Hickman, Isaiah McGuire, Mason Graham, Carson Schwessinger, and then Mo Diabate.
Look, as somebody who suffered through the end of last year, all I wanted to watch was the defense. I would have been perfectly happy at the end of the year if they just punted the second they got the ball. As much as the defense might have hated that because they were tired, it was fun to watch. And this defense now is really fun to watch, and more fun now because they have even more dudes up front and more speed between the first and second level. A lot of people are sitting there trying to bag on Mason Graham, and then you go back and you watch the 3 sacks. That 3rd sack, Mason Graham is beating a double team as Isaiah McGuire's hanging on to Joe Burrow's foot, dragging him down, just preventing the safety. But even on the 2 Myles Garrett sacks, Myles Garrett gets those sacks and deserves them. In fact, the one play he gets where Joe Burrow sort of takes off and he tackles him, Myles Garrett gets all the credit in the world for that one because Joe Burrow basically said, "This is over. I'm done." As soon as he tore into the backfield and just took off, it was a basically 2-yard gain, but it was completely Myles Garrett just destroying the play and not getting sort of the sack credit for it. But getting off track here, all 3 sacks, it's cluttered backfield. It's not like Joe Burrow could have escaped and taken off somewhere. There was nowhere to go.
Yeah, nowhere to go.
We got sort of what Jim Schwartz's vision for this thing is that Myles Garrett now when he gets to face off against some hopeless tackle and the quarterback has nowhere to go. Now it's sort of like a horror movie where you are just waiting for it to come get you, and that is sort of
nowhere to run. There's nowhere to run.
That part of it is interesting. Malik Collins certainly interesting, and then look, Isaiah McGuire had his best game as a pro. In the first game, he had his high from last year was 5 pressures in one game, week 17 against the Miami Dolphins. He had 5 pressures in this one and a sack. Last year, he was credited for 2.5 sacks on the season, 3 by PFF count because they don't do half sacks. He got 1 in this game. He was still an excellent run defender. We've been waiting for, a long-term answer. I thought Olivier Vernon was very good at points with Myles Garrett. Jadeveon Clowney had some moments. Zadarius Smith had some moments, although he was largely used on the interior as a pass rusher. Isaiah McGuire, it's one game. Amarius Mims may not be very good, but he did not look like little brother. He looked like, justified counterpart to Myles Garrett, where you have 2 guys you're fighting. Hell, the thing that I can't take my eyes off of is everybody's probably seen that clip of Myles Garrett running the stunt and then just going into Joe Burrow and drilling him. The thing that I noticed in that clip, as Myles Garrett is getting to Joe Burrow, Isaiah McGuire has already beaten Amarius Mims, and he's right there. If Myles Garrett is not drilling Joe Burrow,
it's going to be McGuire.
It's McGuire. He is really impressive. He's seemingly, we'll see. I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead with 1 game sample size, but he looked like he has taken his game to the next level. And if we're talking about this in week 6, in week 7, week 8, we're talking about extending him to a significant contract. And we're talking about you've got your bookend ends for a very long time. And look, I thought I think Alex Wright is a value. I think Alex Wright is a useful player. They played up this idea that there was a competition between the two. To me, there's no contest. I watched them, and Isaiah McGuire's an end. Alex Wright is sort of a weapon, and that you can sort of line them up, which is great. That's perfectly useful to have.
There's a place for it for sure.
Yes, I felt like Alex Wright was a little bit almost playing with like a nervous energy at times, where it felt like he was almost a little bit spastic.
Yeah.
In the same way I thought Mason Graham was, and that both guys sort of ended up on the ground a little bit too much. But if that's your rotation, if those are the guys you have, and waiting on Mike Hall and stuff, that looks great. And you got Cameron Thomas in there, and you got we talked about this before. Joe Tryon seems to be DE5.
He is. He absolutely is. The numbers bear it out, man. Two snaps. So, you called that. You called that 3 weeks ago.
So you may not like the fact that Joe Tryon's being paid $4 million to be DE5, but it also tells you the Browns feel really good about the first 4 guys. That Joe Tryon might be your 5th guy. Shelby Harris is perfectly reliable. Mm-hmm. My concern with the defensive line was you traded Juwan Briggs, who I thought looked pretty good for the Jets, which is a little irritating. I'm not going to lie. I'm happy for him because I'm a fan, but it was a little bit irritating. I was a little bit worried on the first drive that you're sitting there going, look, Mason Graham's a rookie. They were moving the pile. It wasn't like they were driving him off the ball or anything, but they were just running the ball to get just enough to keep that drive going. Just to go, and are we sure we wanted to get rid of, the closest thing we had to a nose outside of Mason Graham, who lost weight to get in better shape. But fortunately, Mason Graham found his footing, got more and more confident, and by the end of the game, like I said, he started looking like a dude. All of that was. I couldn't take my eyes off the defensive line at any point in the game. I look, since Myles Garrett has gotten here, I basically just watched him every snap.
It's hard not to.
It's the LeBron, for the people who are like, I watch every minute of LeBron James when he was in Cleveland because I'm never going to see this again. That's my Myles Garrett experience, is watching these guys on the defensive line. To then watch Carson Schlesinger, like, I keep waiting for the dumbass rookie mistake to happen, and it doesn't seem to be happening. He just keeps crushing it. And
he really does.
He's big, he's fast, he's physical. I mean, he didn't really have necessarily a spectacular play other than I think the moment where you sit there and went, who is this guy, was when he took out Chase Brown trying to, like, what looked like a Texas route or something like that, and just took him out. Yeah. But, man, like – and that was the other thing that stood out in that first drive. It felt like the linebacker fits weren't where they were supposed to be, and then they sort of fixed that. That part of it was impressive. We aren't sitting here thinking about JOK. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm hoping next year that JOK is going to be right there next to Carson Schlesinger, but you're not sitting here coming out of this game going, man, if the Browns had JOK, the linebacker group would have been fine. You're sitting there going, no, the linebackers played largely pretty well. Devin Bush played a heck of a game. That made that part really help. So your front 7, front 6, depending on the situation, were great. So all of that made me feel really good. And then, you take it to the secondary. Greg Newsome was fantastic. I mean, what am I going to say negatively about it? The spotlight's on him. He knows it. He wants the position. He wants the money. He wants everything that comes with it. And he answered the bell against a team he has all the familiarity in the world against. He knows the Cincinnati Bengals. So I'm not surprised he played well, but there were some things I saw from Greg Newsome that I haven't seen before in terms of just the savvy coming off coverage on an outside receiver because he sees the tight end getting the ball and making the tackle and eliminating any yak. With smart football. So that part gets me excited. At no point in this game are we talking about corners being a liability, even though that was the big question in this game. I think the approach the Browns used at the slot is interesting, that they used Miles Harden, they used Cam Mitchell, and they used Rayshon Jenkins. And I'm sure the Rayshon Jenkins piece was, I'm guessing, personnel match because the Bengals used 3 different tight ends. But you weren't sitting there complaining about that. And then the element that's a little bit different from this last year is Ronnie Hickman. Ronnie Hickman is way more comfortable playing near the line of scrimmage. That was not Juan Thornhill's game. Juan Thornhill is a center fielder, and that's exactly what he's doing for Pittsburgh. Ronnie Hickman this may end up being sort of a gamble situation that could bite them at times, but they're more willing to play guys up. And he's more aggressive in coverage. There were times he got beat, but I thought he settled down. So all that stuff felt really good. I'm curious to see how this thing grows and adapts because, to your point, all these guys, new guys on the field, we didn't see coverage busts. We didn't see breakdowns. Is that going to come? Hopefully not. And hopefully they can just get this thing going and keep it like this.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I think we're all concerned with corners, especially after Emerson went down. You kind of wonder because Newsome was so good in the slot. How's he going to be outside, especially against bigger, more physical outside receivers like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins? But man, they both played lights out. Newsome had the one interference call a little bit early on Chase.
I'm fine with that. He's in position. That is a shit happens situation. What am I going to tell? Don't play coverage like. That's one of those play aggressive. Well, occasionally it's going to go against you. So be it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, this is Jamar Chase. This is the number one fantasy pick in, fantasy football this year. This is a guy who decimates everybody in front of him. So that's going to happen. The fact that was like the low light and Newsome basically dialed it back and locked it down for the rest of the game. Tip of the cap, man. That's a hell of a performance by him. That's exactly what we wanted to see.
I'm gonna guess that whether it was the DB's coach or Jim Schwartz, when he comes to the sideline after that play, or after that drive, you're like, don't change a thing. Just keep playing it because you can't tell him not to. You got to keep. The last thing I want him to do is play passive against these big receivers. So I'm thrilled. I'm hoping it carries over because the same thing with Isaiah McGuire. If this is who Greg Newsome's going to be this year, you're going to keep him. You're going to find a way to keep this thing going into years to come. I've said this multiple times on various outlets. Greg Newsome is way more intelligent than he acts because at times he's a knucklehead and sort of like in a jokester pain in the ass.
He's a goofy, fun-loving kid.
Yes, he's a goof. Like even in training camp, he offensive guys, he gets on their nerves with what he does, which, by the way, as long as you play well, I'm all for having mouthy corners. Like,
oh, yeah.
Give it to me. But if people want to forget because he's goofy, because he's done some of these things and he hasn't been super consistent, he had every trait you could possibly want in a pure man cover corner when they drafted him in 2021. So, Jim Schwartz arrives. He's inherited this corner situation. Yeah, he likes having up Martin Emerson and being able to use these guys in the ways he was using them. He found a way to maximize all three. But if you're getting down to your nitty gritty, how do you want to play football? I think this is it. I think this is ultimately his preferred scenario. And that's not to say he's not going to want Martin Emerson back in some form or fashion. It's just to say that you've got two guys who can just man up two receivers at any point. And yeah, at some point they're probably going to get beat by somebody.
Yeah,
somehow, some way it'll be Cortland Sutton because Cortland Sutton just does it. But like, this is the dream if they can keep this thing going. So I'm hoping that this is just what we're going to get. Hopefully it evolves into that. Hopefully Miles Harden continues to gain confidence. I really like Miles Harden coming out of South Dakota. Again, prick. That's always good for me. He plays sort of like a safety style in terms of his body. At that spot. So he's got the physicality, I think, to be able to do more than some people suspect. I like the way he played aggressively. One ball T. Higgins caught, Joe Burrow couldn't have handed it to him any better. Miles Harden's right in his hip. Beautiful coverage. They just made the right play. So we'll see. I'm very encouraged by what I saw from those guys. And look, that's one of the things where PFF is very difficult to read. Because, like, in order to get really high grades for that, you have to get hands on the ball. Well, Greg Newsome and Denzel Ward each got one PBU. But, like, the bottom line is you don't want them throwing their way, or you want what happened, which is 5 catches for however many yards between the two top, the best two receivers in that pairing in the league.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's about as good a game as you could ask for facing that offense. This is the number one offense in football last year. They threw all over everybody whenever the hell they wanted. The fact that we put the clamps on like that, very impressive. Very excited about that. And it bodes well for for the remainder of the season. Especially, I mean, we're talking about Quinshon Judkins. The defense is getting their own boost when we get a healthy Mike Hall to plug into that pass rush.
Yeah, I mean, he is everything that Jim Schwartz wants from that position. He's more athletic than anyone else they have up there in terms of his raw explosion and ability to potentially beat a guy off the snap and just go. So if that's one more element and one more pass rusher, with what we've seen, are we going to suddenly see a guy like Mike Hall beat somebody clean and suddenly get into the backfield and do what basically make the leap that Isaiah McGuire is making? Is that going to make Carson Schwessinger more dangerous as a blitzer? Because we didn't see a whole lot of that this week because Joe Burrow is fantastic traditionally against the blitz. So the Browns sort of didn't need to, for one thing. They let the front four do their thing. I think we're going to see more of that between the Ravens, between some of these other teams, to get more interesting fronts, to get more stunting, to do more things that are going to try to free guys up.
Just to touch on it, because you just mentioned Joe Burrow. So it's hard not to be a fan of Joe Burrow's game. He's tough. He's as smooth as possible. On that play that we talked about earlier, when Miles did the stunt inside and just absolutely devastated Joe Burrow, the fact that Burrow threw a perfect ball right on the side, like that was the fact that wasn't completed by paper thin. It was an unbelievable play. And that shows you how hard it is to slow a guy like Joe Burrow down. Like that blew my mind. He's good, he's accurate, but staring down the barrel of a gun and getting absolutely drilled, he still threw an absolute dart. That guy is something else.
He got up. He got up.
And he walked away.
It would have been very easy for him to be like, "That's it." He couldn't. Listen. If he just said, "Screw it, I quit football," before Miles got to him, no one would have blamed him. He got up and he kept playing. Like it was as if nothing happened, and everybody else is looking at a freight train hit him. Maybe 285, 290 pounds, full speed, no brakes, complete protection bust. Just absolutely drilled him.
Yep. And as fast as Miles got into the backfield, I think the amount of time that it took Burrow to hit Miles and the ground was like a millisecond. Oh my God. That was good. Yeah, he really did. I can't believe he got up from that. Goodness gracious. All right. So do we believe Kevin Stefanski that he still trusts Andre Smith? Like, what do we feel about all this?
They didn't bring anybody to try out today.
Yeah.
The Falcons brought in 10 kickers or whatever it was. The 49ers signed Eddie Pinheiro. So I don't think trust is the word I'd use, but at least for the moment, it seems like that's where they're going. Yeah. The answer to that question is going to be, if the Browns score their first touchdown against the Ravens, are they sending him out there? They said, screw it. Live in my dream. Just go for 2 every time.
Yeah, right.
I wish the offense was a little bit more dynamic before it got into that type of stuff. But hell, if Harold Fannin, if Harold Fannin can throw a jump pass or something, or maybe they have a package where Dylan Gabriel or something can run around and create something, so be it. But that's where I'd like to get to, is just stop trying to kick extra points. The thing that kills you, it's not the extra points, it's the field goal. I mean, yes, the extra point matters in the fact that it would have been tied and the Bengals would have had to keep going. It's the field goal when you've got to have it. And that's the difference in the lead. I mean, you sit there and you think back to the game. If Joe Burrow just could have not stepped on Amarius Mims to get out of the end zone, the Browns take the lead on a safety. That is so frustrating from the standpoint of, one, it's an indication of where the Browns are and where they need to be. The margin of error is too thin. They're not good enough yet to eliminate that as a thing. If the Browns win by 3 touchdowns, or the Browns win by 2 scores, the Browns win by a touchdown or whatever, and you miss 3, particularly if you win by multiple scores, you're sitting there going, man, the kicker missed kicks, but you're not sitting there going, it's the end of the world because of the kicker. Because the margins are so thin, because the Browns aren't where they need to be, they allow this type of thing to get them. Now, look, even if it wasn't this game, it would eventually come up that there was going to be a game where you needed this type of thing, where you're playing against a heavyweight like that Ravens Bills game. And that's where you have to have that point. I mean, that game had multiple 2-point attempts and stuff that went awry for those teams. So that's the frustrating part, is like, one, yes, I hate that we're dealing with kicker issues again. Two, I hate the fact that we have to talk about it because the Browns aren't good enough to not be past this, in terms of you shouldn't need to rely, you want to rely on your kicker to make kicks, and that's fine, but you don't want to have to rely on them to stay in games or to somehow not lose a game that you dominate.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, there's so many things that went the Browns' way on Sunday, but those 2 kicks, and we touched on the interceptions earlier, and I know that Flacco said they weren't perfect, they were a little low, they were a little away, but they were low and away because he was under pressure and the guys weren't exactly open, so he threw it to where only his guy could get it. When you have the misfortune, not only once but twice, of the ball deflecting straight up in the air, it was almost like it was like a staged event. Like, just the bad luck element of that was crazy.
It happens once. It unlikely once in a game. To not only have the ball low, to tip straight up, and then have a defender right there to catch the ball. To have it twice is just, the odds are so ridiculous.
It's insulting.
Yeah, like, it's just ridiculous to have it happen twice like that. And that's the part that makes it so cartoonish, and where you can allow yourself to get into the "it only happens in Cleveland" type thing.
Yeah.
Even though you watch the Falcons lose because they missed a kick, you watch the Ravens gag in epic proportion the way they did, but like, it's the weird oddity element of it with Cleveland that allows this to sort of get in there. Now, we'll see. Hopefully that this, like, I don't doubt this team in terms of resolve. I don't doubt this team in terms of Kevin Stefanski being able to motivate them. I'm just hoping that this is one more thing that allows them to get going early against the Ravens in these next couple games. That hopefully a lot of this is just both the first week of the season. Weird stuff happens. You saw this all over the place. That hopefully it allows them to get better. But yeah, I mean, that's the part where it's just like, it's just stupid to lose games like that. And it's that being the difference between us being here going, man, the Browns are 1-0 and all these rookies did all these great things, versus, the rookies did awesome, but we're 0-1.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Before we start looking ahead to next week, looking forward to the Baltimore matchup, remember, we're here with the OBR Streaming Network. Thank you guys for sticking with us and in the chat and everything like that. We appreciate it. And be sure to tune in tomorrow, 7 o'clock. We got the Browns Beat with Michael Keefe and Fred Greetham. They always have a special guest every Wednesday, so be sure to tune into that, 7 p.m. tomorrow. All right, Pete, heading into week 2 with Baltimore, let's touch back again on what we saw Sunday night. Obviously, they fell apart at the end. They let Buffalo sneak in and steal a victory. But this is still a Ravens team that, I mean, let's be honest, they kicked Buffalo's ass pillar to post for 3.5 quarters. That's just a physical team that, when that offense is healthy, how the hell do you stop that?
Well, let's start here. That game is just another indication why they won the Super Bowl. The Ravens just have a tendency to do dumb shit. I mean, they have all the talent they could ever ask for, and they just do these things that allow them to lose games. And same thing, same team in the playoffs. They manage to choke it away because they do these things. They make these type of mistakes. So that is one element. I mean, that's the same. This is the Ravens doing these things is why the Browns beat them last year with Jameis Winston. The Browns tried to give away the game. Jameis Winston begged them to take the game, and they couldn't do it.
Yep.
So, but I mean, in terms of the Ravens in general, look, their offensive line is a question mark, particularly at guard.
Yeah, right guard.
They're yeah. I mean, there is a very large blocking sled playing right guard
Yeah.
that I think the Browns can take advantage of.
Man, he had
their
a
center
bad
is
clip
excellent.
floating around X. I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
But
there
keep
is
going.
a fantastic set. They have a very Tyler Linderbaum's an excellent center.
Yeah.
Ronnie Stanley he understands how to play the position, but his body is not always cooperative, and he's dealt with a whole lot of injuries.
Yeah.
Roger Rosengarten at right tackle is in his second year. Is he ready? Is he ready for prime time? And then you've got Voorhees at left guard, and I just don't know enough about him other than I don't think they're very good at guard. That is a potential avenue for the Browns to be very successful on defense. The Browns historically have been very good at dealing with Derrick Henry. The Browns with Jim Schwartz have been pretty good at dealing with these type of backs. Last year, in the first game when the Browns beat the Ravens, they were able to get to Derrick Henry. His yards before contact was 1.9 in the game they won. In the game the Ravens won, it was 3.6. And he had 100 and something odd yards versus 73. Yeah. You go back to Joe, the always much maligned Joe Woods, who had a fantastic game plan against the Titans, and Derrick Henry, who absolutely destroyed him playing a 50 front. They've been able to sort of limit him, and they have theoretically the talent to do it if they can sort of create those elements where there's with Derrick Henry, everything is get to him before he can really get it going. And the other guy that the Browns did really well against, I think better than any other team in the league, was defending against Saquon Barkley last year. They lost. I think they gave up 21 in that game.
Yeah,
but
it wasn't a bad loss.
Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
So that is one area where the Browns may have answers. We shall see. Obviously, Derrick Henry is going to be particularly motivated given the fact that he's putting the loss on himself. But that is an area where I think the Browns can win, and then, or at least have shown the ability to win. And then when it comes to Lamar Jackson, the Browns have a good number of athletes, and it's because of the interior pressure that they can potentially bring that I think can make this really interesting. Myles Garrett's going to get around Ronnie Stanley.
Yep.
I'm very curious to see how Isaiah McGuire and Alex Wright and those guys deal with Roger Rosengarten. But the issue when you run into Lamar Jackson is you get those ends up the field, you got nothing from your interior, and you create these big running lanes, and he can just take off and go. But when you have Malik Collins, when you have Mason Graham, when you have Shelby Harris, we'll see if they activate Mike Hall this week. I suspect they will not, but we'll see if it's Aiden Huntington, if it's Alex Wright inside, if they can get enough up the field so it keeps that pocket going with him, that takes away some running room. Carson Schwessinger could potentially function as a guy who's going to be quick pressure. That's the part that I think the Browns might be pretty good with. The worry you have is that you have to play zone coverage against the Ravens the vast majority of the time. You cannot live in man, because if you have corners eyes on the receiver the whole way, then Lamar Jackson could just run outside, and if he's able to get out there, he can run for 60 yards, and your corner's looking the other way because he's trying to defend the receiver. So you have to play a significant amount of zone. The Browns have typically not been nearly as good in zone. They have had communications when it comes to zone. Are those elements going to be better? The flip side of that is zone gives you more opportunities to create turnovers. Man, you have your eyes on the receiver, particularly with corners. They're playing the hands. They're not looking for the ball. At least in zone, you are potentially looking at the quarterback and looking at the ball, because you have to be ready for Lamar to take off. And now you have the ability to potentially get opportunities to catch the ball. But when you get stretched out so far between the weapons the Ravens have and Lamar Jackson's ability to extend plays, he can make you look really bad. And the thing that's really frustrating with Lamar Jackson is every so often, this happened a couple of different games, the Browns do every single thing right, and they just put the pinpoint pass right on the spot, indefensible pass, and you're just like, okay, I guess we just lose this week. You know what I mean? Like, there's that element with Lamar Jackson where every so often you're just like, nothing I can do. You just win. And
Well,
that's always the frustration with that.
yeah.
The other
Well,
question,
and
I think, go ahead. No, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, how many times have we seen these Ravens games and the D line gets so frustrated that after these plays, they just get up and they dap him. They just shake their heads. And like Miles has been, I remember this was, I want to say 2022, and it was Miles and it was Clowney just chasing him all night. And they just couldn't get paws on him. Yeah. And they would get up shaking their heads, just like, what the hell can we do? Like, he's got that juice to him. I think that was the game where
he made a couple of throws where you're just like, I got nothing for this. I think Myles Garrett literally said in the post game, just tip of the cap. Like, I can't.
Yeah, one of them was a touchdown to Andrews, I think, in the end zone.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh my
you're
God.
Just like, you win.
I was ready to throw a shoe. It was ridiculous. That's what he does, though.
Now the question's going to be, how do the Browns deal with their weapons? I imagine Grant Delpit's going to just follow Mark Andrews around wherever he goes. And to his credit, this is the reason they signed him to an extension. He's done a great job with some of these tight ends. Yeah. How are they going to deal with Isaiah Likely? How are they going to try to pass off these receivers? Do
we know that Likely's playing? Because he missed.
I don't. That will be one we're going to have to watch on the injury report because he's still coming back from the injury. He might be out.
Yeah.
They may still not have Patrick Ricard back this week. So that could be a little bit of relief. Now, the flip side of that is Zay Flowers is a pain in the ass to cover, even though relative to what the Browns have at corner, he's exactly the matchup they want. Smaller, faster guys is right in their should be in their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
We'll see if it plays out that way. Rashad Bateman is a talented receiver. It never seems to be clicking the way that you'd think it would. I loved him coming out of Minnesota. I thought he was going to be a dude.
So did I.
Very upset when the Ravens drafted him, thinking this was going to make this thing really go.
Yeah.
Just the amount of guys they have can be problematic, and then you get running backs in the backfield. If it's Justice Hill, are they going to? I was a little surprised they had the undrafted rookie or undrafted free agent guy. They had Keaton or whatever inactive.
Keaton Mitchell. Yeah.
Yes, he was inactive against the Lakers. That's going to be because he killed the Browns the last time he was healthy.
Killed him. Yep.
So is that going to be something they have to account for? Because they don't necessarily have an answer for that type of guy.
Yeah.
This could be a game where, look, as I said, I've yet to see Carson Schwarzenegger make a big mistake. This is a game where I could see it happen just because Lamar Jackson is that frustrating to deal with, and you just get caught out in space. Yeah. What's that going to look like? Are they going to use him to try to spy? Or are they going to try to use it sort of basically two guys on, splitting the field in half, trying to sort of corral him that way? It just creates a lot of problems. I like the way the Browns match up with the Ravens overall. The familiarity works in their favor. At times, the Browns can do a whole lot of damage against this team. That part is interesting. I still want to feel good about that part.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is going to be interesting because if we know anything about Lamar, Lamar and Henry both, you're talking about two guys that finished in the top 5 of the MVP voting a year ago. So those are your lead dogs, but man, and you saw it a little bit with that great one-hander he had in the end zone last week. And I talked about it 2 weeks ago. I think DeAndre Hopkins is such a low-key good signing for them. I think he's just such a tough ball player, and he's just so consistent. He's got such a great catch radius. His hands are ridiculous. That's a guy that to me is going to be a nightmare on those plays that we get pressure on Lamar, but it breaks down. He buys a few seconds and then just zips a stupid pass into coverage, and Hopkins just comes down with it. That's my least favorite receiver that they have right now. I am more worried about him than I am the other guys because I think both Newsome and Ward have the feet and the hips that they can run with Zay Flowers. And Rashad Bateman, look, he's a talented kid, but like you said, there's just never been any traction in Baltimore. He's just never taken off. He's never gotten the confidence. He's never had a takeover moment. I'm not worried about him, man, but D-Hop scares me. I think that's a tough cookie to crack for the Browns.
Yeah, if you're just playing straight man coverage, the Browns have guys that can sort of deal with him, even though he's sort of got that veteran savvy that makes him tough to deal with. But when you're in zone, they can, if you're having to live in zone or combo coverages and stuff like that, it's easier for the Ravens to dictate those matchups, and that becomes a challenge for the Browns that they're going to have to answer if he's going to go up. I mean, did he have any other catches in the game against the Bills other than the one that they got and they had to have?
I don't think so, to be honest with you. I mean, I would have to look up, but like nothing really caught my eye. Obviously, the touchdown is going to catch everybody's eye.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, if that's all you do, if he does one of those every week, it's a game-changing play.
Yeah,
and he's not like a focal point in the offense.
Yeah, well, and that's my whole thing though. That like makes him a worrisome issue for me is because he's a chain mover. And it's not just that they're getting a first down. It's that your defense is still on the field and you're getting probably 2 more carries of Derrick Henry in that scenario. It's just that's, obviously he's not the go-to guy. He's not a number 1 receiver, but that's a guy that I think can be a real bitch to deal with on Sunday. That's one of my concerns, at least with that offense.
Well, the Ravens have the ability to do the same thing the Browns do. This is pending guys who are available. I mean, they're rolling former Browns tight end Zaire Mitchell-Payton out there at points, but they can do the same thing the Browns do with that accordion effect, where they can spread you out thin and they can stack up the box and force you to match up with personnel and have to react and match up to them, and that can create problems for you. So if they want to spread them out with all those receivers and Andrews and put him out there, then if Lamar's just going to take off or it's just a way to create space for Derrick Henry, you have to find an answer for that. And that's just difficult to deal with. Yeah.
Well, flipping over to the other side of the ball, I mean, it's fun to say, revenge game or there's familiarity there, but outside of knowing the city and the building, the Ravens are a completely different organization, at least defensively, than when Flacco would have been there practicing anything like that. So what are you looking to see out of the Browns this Sunday? What do you think their focal point of the game plan is going to be? How would you attack this Ravens defense?
Well, I mean, how would I attack it would be a lot of things like, and this is where I like having Joe Flacco, is empty, being able to shift in and out of empty, because again, if you have Dylan Sampson, you have Harold Finn, and you have David Njoku on the field all at the same time, now the Ravens have to make choices. And one of the choices they're going to have to make before the game even starts, are they going to put Jaire Alexander out there again? Because he looked terrible. And from what I understand, he had barely practiced. I don't know why they put him out there like they did, but he was just looked cooked, and the Bills took advantage over and over and over again. But if you force their corners, are we going to get Humphrey matched up on Dylan Sampson? Yes, please, because it should hopefully open up Jerry Jeudy or David Njoku or whatever. Where's Kyle Hamilton going to go? Because you got to know where he is at every point in the game.
Yep.
They've just got a lot of guys in that mix that are very difficult to deal with. I think Roquan Smith is falling off a little bit. People praise him endlessly, and he used to be a phenomenal linebacker. Maybe he's still going to be, but it feels like the last year and a half, he's just sort of been reputation.
He went from a great player to a good player. He's still good. He's still a tough football player, but that's the thing. It's the NFL. The margin of error from an elite player to just a really good player is paper thin. Losing a step can do that for anybody, But what my worry is, and maybe the Browns will do this. I mean, if they want to try to go jumbo and they can get some success, great. But Travis Jones has become a very good football player. Yep.
They've got
is a beast.
Yeah. Those are your 2 interior guys, and the Browns. Yep. If the Browns have concerns about the interior, that's a tough matchup. And
it's a nightmare matchup.
To go from what the Bengals were putting on the field to those 2, in addition to the other guys they have that they can roll out there, that is a major concern. And to go to on the edges, Owe still has not. He's a pretty good player.
Yeah,
he's not Trey Hendrickson.
No,
they don't have that guy. Kyle Van Noy is annoyingly good, but I don't necessarily treat him as a dynamic pass rush presence. And he's the guy where any year could be the year he finally falls off.
Yeah.
Hopefully by Wednesday. But
Mike Green is a bit of a concern because he's got the athleticism to be one of those edge guys. He's got the twitch, he's got the bend.
But he didn't even play.
Yeah.
He played I think all he did was special teams week 1.
Yeah.
So is he not there yet? So I'm maybe a little less worried on that end, where maybe the Browns can find ways to run the ball off tackle if Jack Conklin's good to go, and they can if they want to put Devin Jenkins out there, they want to put all those guys and do what they did in 2023 and do those type of things to find success, find ways to get to the edge. I'm here for it. Maybe that's a way for them to find ways to do it, but that's sort of where I'm at, where I look at this and it's the extremes. It's get as many weapons out there as possible and spread them out and find your matchups that you really like, and hopefully limit what Kyle Hamilton can do over the top, as well as the Starks that they drafted, or try to get bigger, force them to personnel match, and hopefully find ways to get to get yourself to the corners somehow, some way, and maybe create some space that way. But the other part of that is, we've seen them sort of go jumbo or at least tease it. At some point, what does play action look like off of that? Because you'd like to think that if you've got Njoku, you've got Fannin, you've got all these tight end bodies out there, that you're going to be able to find some way to take advantage in the passing game. Those are things that I think are interesting to me. And then just finding ways to just find DB matchups you like, find the guy you want to pick on, and manipulate the situation to hopefully get Njoku, who's been good against these guys, and Jerry Jeudy. But again, if I'm looking at sort of Kevin Stefanski history, it's the Kareem Hunt thing that's been a pain in the ass for the Ravens, putting him in different spots, getting him matched up on a corner, throwing it to him when he's on a corner because he's bigger than them, or letting that create space for somebody else. But I think Dylan Sampson, I hate that I have to that I'm doing this and saying, hey, our biggest playmaker or one of our big X factors for this is going to be the rookie who's celebrating his 21st birthday in this game. But those players are problematic for the Ravens and everybody, but they're problematic for the Ravens because the other part of this I look at is, who did the Bills have success with when they threw the ball? It wasn't necessarily like Dalton Kincaid seems to be turning into a dude at this point.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like Khalil Shakir and their traditional, guys. It was sort of these smaller or these mismatch type players that cause problems.
Yeah. Well, they went heavy. I want to say as that game went along, because they drafted him in the second round last year, but as that game went along, I feel like you saw Josh Allen really gravitating towards Keon Coleman and started feeding him, especially in the second half. He went off in the second half. I think he finished with 8 for 110 and a touchdown.
I still can't believe that was the 2-point play, was to just turn and throw a fade. You have Josh Allen, you just screw it. I'm throwing a fade.
Yeah. That's I'll tell you what, his ascension to the player that he's become is that's to me almost as big a fluke as Brady going in the 6th round. I mean, I can't think of anybody besides Josh Allen that went from that prospect to this player.
No, he's it. He's one of one.
Yeah.
I mean, they broke it down. Is. They broke it down during the game where they showed his awful mechanics at Wyoming. They were god awful to how hard he's worked, and that's all the credit in the world to him. And then Buffalo for sticking with their organization the way they did, which is why it was never going to work with the Browns. Hugh Jackson wasn't going to develop that. So yeah, I mean, all the credit in the world to him, but and that's unfortunately the other element that the Browns don't have. Joe Flacco was a big boy, but he's not quite that mobile to be able to just take off and get his own first downs. But yeah, I mean, that's the other dynamic that sort of worked in their favor. But yeah, I mean, the Ravens defense is very talented, but they, again, just like they did last year, and whether it was against the Browns or in the playoffs, they will or they've had this reputation for years of being late game chokers. That they give up these big leads, that their defense melts down, that they can't stay disciplined. So if Joe Flacco has time, and this could be a big key, obviously, again, I'm hoping DeJuan Jones take a big step forward since he's not blocking Trey Hendrickson. I'm hoping we have a healthy Jack Conklin that can deal with Van Noy. It's really going to be about those guys in the middle dealing with Madubuike and Travis Jones and whoever else they want to throw in there. If Joe Flacco has time, can he just start picking this thing apart and maybe get some more plays down the field? I think that's part of what works in the Ravens' favor is if they can – I mean, Joe working on time theoretically would be good, but if it's on time and predictable to a point where the Ravens can start keying on it, that's where I sit there and hope maybe that we can extend some plays that allow them to go down the field. I mean, look, they had a lot of success last year with Jameis Winston. That was Cedric Tillman's coming out party in terms of that first game of the 3-game stretch.
Yep.
You know, Jerry Jeudy's certainly more than talent. Again, these tight ends can operate and cause problems.
Yeah. So if I had to ask you, and we'll go with both teams. I want to know who your X factor is for the Browns on offense and who you're worried about on the Ravens offense as an X factor.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, my X factor is the freaking soon to be 21-year-old running back.
Yeah.
I think Dylan Sampson is going to be a big part of this game plan. Because if the Browns don't feel confident in their ability to run the ball,
that's how you manufacture it. Yeah.
I think they're going to split him out constantly or throw to him out of the backfield and try to create plays that way, in addition to trying to find the various receivers. But I think using him to either figure out what the coverage is, force them to make choices in how they want to cover. Because if you're the Ravens, you have to sit here and go, how am I going to deal with the combination of David Njoku and Harold Fannin, and then how am I going to deal with Dylan Sampson? You know how you're going to, Jerry Jeudy's going to be your priority, and you're probably pretty satisfied with, your corner dealing with Cedric Tillman, but he's the guy that you may not have like a natural answer for. So ultimately for him, he's the guy that jumps out to me. For the Ravens, the guy that I worry about, it's probably Zay Flowers. Even though, again, I think the Browns corners should be able to deal with him. But the fact that they have to play more zone, I don't like that. Even if it's, obviously they play a lot of cover 3 and cover quarter stuff, which can help them out and sort of get them into what amounts to be man coverage at points. I don't like what he can do, particularly if those other guys are working. Now, again, if Isaiah Likely's out, I think this makes things a little bit simpler because when you have both Andrews and Likely, it just puts a lot of pressure on them. And Zay Flowers almost becomes like an extra guy you have to deal with. But man, he is so electric at all different points on the field.
Oh yeah, look what he did Sunday. He was phenomenal.
Yeah. Right.
So how about defensively? Who's at which I would probably lean towards. I mean, obviously, like we need Miles to do Miles things, and the defensive line's important. But man, between a possible spy on Lamar and being, the first line of defense after the defense, Carson Schlesinger he's going to be under the spotlight for this one. This is a big game for him.
Yeah, this is his first big boy football game that he's going to have to figure out because he has to go from tackling Derrick Henry to then finding a way to be fast enough to deal with Lamar Jackson.
Chase Lamar.
And coverage responsibilities. That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot for anybody, but particularly your second start in the NFL. He could be a monster in terms of the impact he could have, but it would not shock me if he struggles and he gets at least has a few moments where you're sitting there going, well, he's a 20-something-year-old rookie in his second ever game, and this is the game he's dealing with. I mean, he's exactly what they want for this type of matchup. He's big enough to deal with Derrick Henry, in as much as anyone is big enough to deal with Derrick Henry, and he's theoretically fast enough, not necessarily to chase down Lamar, but to take appropriate angles to be to be. And if he comes up the middle, he's fast enough to at least scare Lamar into making a move. So yeah, I mean, he's definitely the guy where I think everybody's going to be. everybody's going to sit here and go, what's he going to do in this game?
Yeah. Yeah. So how about for the Ravens? We thinking Kyle Hamilton? We touched on that earlier, but yeah, I mean, he's the best player on the field.
Yeah, I mean, look, he is capable of winning the game. If he's able to create a turnover or a big play or something like that, that may be the difference in the game. He's that good. And he's just he's another one. The second they picked him, you're just like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like, so look, he has the ability to impact everything in terms of pass versus run, but more than anything, Joe Flacco's history. Again, he was very good in terms of avoiding making the big mistake or even testing the big mistake this past Sunday. He's got to be very smart. Thankfully, he's played a ton of football, that he's going to know where Kyle Hamilton is on every single play. That's the guy there's a guy you're sitting there going, I'm going to know where this guy is on every single play. It's Kyle Hamilton.
No matter what.
Without question. So knowing that you're going to find him on every play, are you still going to allow him to beat you, or can you find a way to at least minimize him and take him out of the game? The defensive line is going to be a problem, or seemingly going to be a problem. Let's borrow the coach speak from Kevin Stefanski. Massive opportunity for the offensive line to prove themselves in this one, but I don't love it. Travis Jones is terrific. I don't know that they have a great answer for that. I don't love Ethan Posick in that matchup. But
is what we talked about. They're a brute force defensive front, and we're a finesse offensive line. That's kind of a nightmare matchup.
Yes, unless Wyatt Teller's a big, strong kid, and Jack Conklin has a little bit of power, but they're going to find a way to get their big bodies to go against Ethan Posick as much as they can and try to just bully him and disrupt from that setup. So can the Browns find ways to deal with that? We'll see. But yeah, that scares me. I don't want to be in a game where Joe Flacco has to drop back 45 times. I think that they will lose if that is the case. And it was the same thing with Jameis Winston, same thing with Joe Flacco, and it would be the same thing for almost anyone.
Yeah. If
you are asking them to drop back that many times, at some point a mistake is going to happen. And in this case, Joe Flacco dropped back 45 times against the Bengals. Mistakes happened. They weren't his fault, but nevertheless,
they still happened. Yeah.
They happened. So that's where I sit there and go, you cannot be in a situation where we're talking about Joe Flacco with 45 pass attempts and feel good about your chances of victory. That means if you won doing that, you got big-time defensive performance. You probably got turnovers. Maybe you scored a touchdown or something on defense, or special teams or something else went your way, because that is not, to me, a recipe for success.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that completely. And I was surprised at the rate that we threw the ball on Sunday, but when you look back at the box score and you look at the yard per carry average, I mean, I think all three backs were under 2 yards a carry. I think they were all 1.8, 1.7, 1.3 for Sanders. Like, it was just legitimately embarrassing, because like, this is what we've hung our hat on with Kevin Stefanski. We're going to do the 2 tight ends. We're going to run the ball. We're going to control the clock. This is what we're going to do. And man, it almost seems like we're not even capable.
Well, this is where they get in the conversation. You get people like going, hey, the Browns should totally draft Caleb Downs. I'm just sitting here going, listen, phenomenal player. Is he going to play guard?
Yeah,
because,
right.
Listen, not only do the Browns need to draft a whole bunch of linemen, this class looks like a class where you
loaded at tackle.
So,
yes,
look, I'm greedy as hell. I wanted Abdul Carter, and still kind of salty I don't have him as I watch him block a punt doing this around the edge. But having said, I mean, I'm thrilled with what they've got, but like, the Browns do nothing but play defense. Like, come on, man, we have to do something. Trade down, get more draft assets. That's before we even get to the whole, are we going to end up and be in a scenario where we are taking a quarterback, which almost certainly is likely. But like, they have to, like, if they
need a tackle. They need a tackle.
Yeah,
we got 3 guys under contract, right? We got DeWand, we got Weiler, and we've got Zinter. Everybody else is on a 1-year deal, right?
They've got Jack Conklin's still going to be under contract, but they can get out of it. also have KT
I thought
Levinson.
I thought he was down to the last year. I thought that was the
Maybe. I
restructure.
think there's one more, but
I hope so.
yes. That's my, all these people look at this and go, the Browns are really bad in terms of the contract status. They are. Yeah. However, it wouldn't shock me if they were to bring back someone. To me, right now, the favorite would be Jack Conklin in that scenario. But it wouldn't shock me if they said Wyatt Teller come back for another year as we get this thing figured out. But either way, like, stop telling me about Caleb Downs. I know. I watch him. I see him. He's terrific.
Yeah.
They have to get some linemen. They have to get that. They have to get just more offense in general.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, they got to score some freaking points,
So that whole element, and then, we're going to see, hopefully it gets better, but like, I think by the end of the year, hopefully people will be, figuring out just how badly they're going to need it, and two, just how good this group is. I mean, right now I don't know how to test athletically. I'm enamored with the kid from Miami, right tackle.
Yep.
But and then the other guy they got, which is a swing, and he's young, but I don't sit here and go, we're going to plug him in at left tackle, which I've seen thrown around, which is KT Leviston. See what he can ultimately get. But either way, you're still sitting here. And if we came out of this next year's draft with one of those first round picks and a second round pick on the line and a fourth round pick on the line, I don't think anyone would blink.
Yeah,
no one would blink. You take basically the same approach the Steelers did. What was it, last year? Mm-hmm. Obviously, you're hoping for better results than what they've gotten so far. But nevertheless, it has to happen. They have to get better and younger on the line.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that. So let's you want to keep your friends close and your enemies closer. What you got any takeaway about the Pittsburgh Steelers in that Jets game? Are the Steelers what you thought they would be? Are you a little surprised that they gave up 31-32 to the Jets and got pretty much dusted by Justin Fields?
Look, there are certain things that did not surprise me. Certain things that didn't surprise me include Broderick Jones can't block you.
I got good feet though, Pete. That's not that. That's not that bad.
I'm very excited about the prospect of having watched Broderick Jones protect Aaron Rodgers for the rest of the season, because Aaron Rodgers cannot move, and they've got Trey Hendrickson twice, Myles Garrett twice. They cannot run the ball. They are as bad as the Browns are right now, running the ball. And the Jets did a good job. Fine, so be it. Juwan Briggs part of it. But I don't. In the same way the Browns can't have much confidence and hopefully are going to get a whole lot better this week, the Steelers have to be sitting there going, they have to get a whole lot better running the ball, because Aaron Rodgers cannot live in a world where he's throwing 40 plus times a game either. And even though he did really well in terms of the stats and everything else with the 4 touchdowns and some of the things that Arthur Smith drew up that worked really, really well, his average depth of target was 4.4 yards. Like they're not going down the field much. And look, it worked. You're gonna take the win and move on and try to improve on those things. But part of that is because he got no time. So that part remains consistent. The Steelers don't run the ball well. Their pass protection is a giant question mark, and left tackle is just a hole. They also, now to the credit of the Jets, even though they lost Elijah Vera-Tucker, they run block really well, and Braylon Allen is really good running the ball. And your rushing defense is always going to look a little bit worse when you're dealing with Justin Fields, because that's what he does.
Yeah.
But it was also not lost on me how many times I watched the Jets just run right up the middle, pick up right where the Ravens left off in the playoffs last year, just caving them in downhill. And I think that continues to be a problem. I'm curious to see how long Mike Tomlin's going to sit around before he just says, Terrell Austin, we're done with this. I'm taking over to try to change things up, because they just got mauled on the inside at points. And they've got guys, Cameron Hayward, obviously, at some point will be too old.
Which I'm hoping is yesterday.
Keanu Benton, a good player. And obviously they're missing, they're still
Derek Harmon.
Harmon, they'll get him back. But like, you've got all these guys and you're still not stopping the run at all. That is a concern. Now the Steelers benefit from the fact that they're the sort of opposite of the Browns in terms of their schedule is easier early and then gets more difficult. So they've got a chance to load up. Who do they play this week? They play like the Patriots or something.
Patriots are in Miami. I know that, but I'm pulling up the schedule.
God awful AFC East teams.
Oh my God.
So they get a chance to sort of get in a groove where the Browns are the opposite. But like the stuff they want to do in the passing game seems to be working early. The little receiver what's his face? The little receiver they have is really good.
Yeah.
Not Roman Wilson because he still hasn't.
Calvin Austin.
Yes.
Calvin Austin. Yeah.
Calvin Austin III, who's annoyingly good.
Yeah, he's fast.
He's a good player. DK Metcalf was a roller coaster, at least in that first game, because at times he looked like a nightmare to deal with. And then at times he was doing weird stuff. So they've got a lot of dudes. And then their DBs are interesting now with Jalen Ramsey.
Ramsey's a damn good player.
Yes, especially when you can put him in the slot.
Yep.
So that part of it is a little frightening. They just signed Jabril Peppers because they're without Jalen Elliott for a minute. Who knows? We'll see where that goes. If that's going to be something they want to roll with and continue rolling with. Mm-hmm. But I still think they're going to be a tough out on defense, and especially unless the Browns figure out a way to run the ball. The Steelers being bad at it doesn't mean a whole lot if you can't take advantage. And if you're trying to pass against them relentlessly, that's not a good matchup for you. So they continue to be, Aaron Rodgers is certainly better than Russell Wilson / Justin Fields for them, but is it enough to really move the needle? I'm not convinced.
Does it close any sort of gap with Baltimore? And I don't think that it does. I don't think Rodgers is that type of player anymore. I think he's good. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's a damn good quarterback. But between what he's lost physically and then, like you said, Broderick Jones at left tackle, I mean, that could be a ticking time bomb for the Steelers. We could be Mason Rudolph or Will Howard before we know it. Between Cordell Volson, who I hope gets back on the field soon. I think he's out for the season this year for the Bengals. He was always my favorite because he could not run his soul. And Broderick Jones is my new favorite AFC North offensive lineman. I love this guy. I hope the Steelers sign him to an extra contract and say, listen, we're going to figure this thing out. Just trust the process. He's eventually going to learn to pass block. We just got to let him do it over and over and over again against Myles Garrett until Myles Garrett runs out of sacks, and then he will be good. So please, I hope he's the next Jackie Slater. He plays for 20 years. Let's keep him on.
Just keep
make it happen.
Because I don't know. I don't know where at least right now, I don't know what the Steelers have for an answer, but are they going to go out right next? Listen, the Steelers have the same problem the Browns do. The Steelers don't have 2 first-round picks. They have the 1. And, I was watching, the Michigan-Oklahoma game, and I'm watching as many Steelers fans talk about John Mateer as I saw Browns fans talking about him. So you're sitting there going, okay, we're going to get a quarterback, which they absolutely need. But where are you going to then pick up another tackle in the second round? Or are you going to sign somebody? Like, how are you going to deal with that? So the Steelers have for a team that's very old and seemingly put a whole lot of eggs in this year's basket. I mean, I still have this theory that Mike Tomlin's going to be the Miami Dolphins head coach next year, but we'll see what happens. But I see too many fatal flaws for the Steelers right now. It could get better. It could get better in a hurry, and they could be really good. But I still see them as sort of that 9-8, 10-7 first round playoff exit, and maybe they don't even get there that far.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and look, I could see it. I personally thought that game was going to be low scoring. I think it was going to be a heavy defensive game, a little bit of running here or there. I was surprised that, Caleb Johnson, the Iowa running back, I think he only got 1 carry, got very limited reps. And I mean, Jalen Warren's not a bad ball player. But for a team that was struggling to run the ball, I'm surprised he didn't get more of an opportunity. That was surprising to me.
But if you're Steelers fan, you're sitting there, why didn't Jalen Warren get more of an opportunity? They kept running the ball with what's his face from the Eagles.
Kenneth Gainwell.
Yeah, they kept going with Gainwell. Who, to his credit, hero on special teams. But Kenneth Gainwell was their leading ball carrier. It wasn't Jalen Warren or Caleb Johnson. So you have all these annoyed Steelers fans going, what's the deal with this? Look, I had major concerns about Caleb Johnson coming out of college. Maybe we'll figure it out. Maybe it's just a matter of timing. But I don't know that this line's going to help him a whole lot right now. And if he can't beat out Kenneth Gainwell, that certainly raises a red flag. But given their line thing, is this just turned into Najee Harris 2.0, where everybody's mad at the running back when nobody can block for him. And Najee Harris is certainly wasn't worth a first-round pick, but he's seemingly fine. But yeah, the Kenneth Gainwell, look, that's another thing. I hope continue to feed him the ball.
Yeah, make him the bell cow. Let's go.
So yeah, that was the other part of that game I found very confusing.
All right, so obviously we got Baltimore coming up this week. What do you make of this early schedule? These first 5 games are brutal, right? So we got Baltimore next week, then we got Green Bay at home, then we're at Detroit, and then we go to England for Minnesota. That's the first 5?
Yeah. Well, thanks to Dallas, the Green Bay Packers are an absolute wood chipper at this point. They look terrible. Watching them in the first game, they looked absolutely terrifying.
And Detroit's good. Detroit's damn good. That's a tough, physical football team. I get it. 2 coordinators, new coordinators on either side of the ball. There's going to be a little drop off. But that was an ass kicking. That was a whistle to whistle ass kicking.
It was, but like that's not the only concern Detroit has. Like, it's not dissimilar to the Browns from 2023 to 2024, where Detroit is still missing a whole bunch of guys from the end of last season.
Yeah,
like Aleem McNeil, they're just like I believe they just shut him down for the year. They are waiting for guys to get healthier. Yeah. They're waiting for some of these guys to get healthy. Terrion Arnold left that game week 1 hurt. I don't know that they are.
Ragnow retired in the offseason.
Right. So I don't know. And that was one of there were a whole lot of people saying, showing freeze frames and going, Ben Johnson would never allow this, as you see a Green Bay Packer right next to the quarterback and 2 linemen standing over here, not blocking him. I attribute a lot of that to week 1. But again, you lose Frank Reich now. That is part of that. But yes, there is a brain drain. It's not just the coordinator. They lost about 5 coaches off that staff because one of them, the passing game coordinator, is the offensive coordinator for the Jets now. But beyond the brain drain element, I look at the Detroit Lions and I sit there and wonder, is it going to take them to week 6 to week 8 before they really get rolling again because of all the guys they are waiting on? And again, the Green Bay Packers were fantastic. Jared Goff looked very ordinary in that game. I hope he continues to look ordinary. So, look, I don't want to play the Lions at all, but if I'm going to play the Lions, I want to play them as early as possible. So I'm kind of curious to see if the Browns can do something about that one and maybe steal that while the Lions seemingly are vulnerable. But going from that to then going to England to play Minnesota, who's already there for a week because they have a game in Europe before week 4.
Yeah, they got I think Ireland game with the
Steelers.
Steelers.
The Ireland game against the Steelers. So they're already there. They are already acclimated. It's technically a Browns home game, even though the Minnesota Vikings will be there for a week. I hate that matchup. I hate Brian Flores' defense. It's a nightmare to play against. Brian Flores' defense with Javon Hargrave just seemed to open up something else for them. In addition to the fact they've got guys like Van Ginkel and all these other guys who are flying around and making plays. J.J. McCarthy will have more time to get acclimated, but maybe that's an opportunity for the Browns to get going against a younger quarterback. I mean, that, again, if you're going to face him, you'd rather face the younger quarterback earlier than later. J.J. McCarthy, not all that different from Caleb Williams in terms of he's really, really athletic and he can throw the hell out of the ball. It's decision-making. It's putting the ball where it needs to be at the right time. Is that stuff going to get fixed? But the other question I have based on what I saw last night is, when is Minnesota's left tackle going to be healthy? I'm hoping it's not before week 4, because if it's not, or week 5 or whatever, week 5, because Justin School couldn't block anybody. And it's the difference between excellent left tackle play and bum. I will take bum against the Browns because I think the rest of their line's pretty solid. They signed a bunch of guys in the interior to try to fix that, and they'll have guys back from suspension at that point.
Yeah,
the Vikings, just from a roster standpoint, are very worrying. So I don't like that matchup. Yeah. And then after you get back, you come back from England to then go to Pittsburgh and have to play the Steelers on the road sucks. So that's what makes the losing to the Bengals hurt so much. It would have just made such a big deal to go 1-0, to be able to immediately say things are getting better, even though they're 0-1, you can still say that, but it's different when it's in the standings. When you can say we are 1-0, we are feeling good heading into Baltimore. Even if you're going to end up potentially 2-4 out of this stretch, getting that first one would have just been so good. It's more so, like, certainly for fans, it's going to be a peace of mind thing, but it's confirmation for the players that this is working, that we are doing the right things. It's giving you that sense of, if we keep doing things the way that we're doing, it's going to lead to success. And that's where getting that gut punch, losing like that, it just sucks, because you did all these things correctly. You did it right. You trusted your process, play the game the way I thought they should play it, and came up short. So maybe that's going to give them a little bit more motivation heading into Baltimore. But that's where that losing that game hurts, because when the we'll learn a whole lot more as we go in terms of the future opponents. The Miami Dolphins look god awful. I don't know that Mike McDaniel is going to be the coach when the Browns play them.
You're not wrong. That to me, because I rewatch all these games on condensed, and it was without question the worst I've ever seen Tua look. Like, the worst. And he had some really ugly moments his first couple of years. But man, he struggled with decision making. He wasn't comfortable in the pocket. They couldn't block anybody. They couldn't stop anybody. I mean, we saw Danny Dimes carve them up. But the only thing I'll say to that is Danny Dimes carved us up last year. If you remember that week 3 game, if I had hair, Pete, I would have ripped it out. I was licking my chops going into that game, because I know for damn sure we're going to beat the shit out of Daniel Jones. And he shredded us. The Neighbors had the 2 touchdowns. Oh, that was such a shitty game.
Yeah. No, look, I thought Mike McDaniels was screwed the second I heard him say, we're going to stress accountability this year. What are we, year 4, year 5? Yeah. And you're like, this is the year for accountability. I thought immediately, I don't gamble, but if I was going to bet, it would have been first coach fired Mike McDaniel. Yeah. Because you come out of this game and you hear the defensive players go, we did our own stuff. You hear Tyreek Hill's just strange wife is suing him. Yeah. Like, all of the seems to be a recipe disaster.
It's a mess.
They play the Patriots. I don't think the Patriots are any good. No. So you get to some of these other these areas of the schedule. If the Browns can stay healthy, that's going to be so critical. They have to find a way to stay healthy. And then 2, if they can get through this and not sort of fall apart, and I genuinely believe they will not. Kevin Stefanski has been very good at being able to keep these guys focused on the right things and play hard and competitive. If they can get out of this 2-4, they could steal one. They beat the Lions or something, can somehow steal one of these divisional games. Yeah, they have a chance. Look, I do not see the playoffs. I'll be very clear, but I do think they can be very frisky if they get through it. And not only do I think they can go out and start beating some of these other teams when they get. I think they may put it on a few of these teams where, if the Miami Dolphins don't get a whole lot better, and they may, because week 1 to week 2 and all this week to week league,
of course,
all those things,
of course,
they are going to hurt people if they play the Miami Dolphins. The New England Patriots, they're going to hurt Drake May when they play the New England Patriots. They are going to do a lot of harm to these teams that cannot protect their quarterbacks or these other things. And then I think they can go on a run. And look, I want them to be competitive. I want them to play meaningful December football. Yeah. So if they can get through that, I think they can find a way to make this thing interesting. But it's tough. That having this be your first 6 is brutal. Losing that first one makes it even worse.
Yeah. No, agreed. And I feel very good about the team moving forward. But in that same breath, you touched on it. It's like I can't even seriously consider the playoffs, because there's just so many things that would have to happen for that to be a possibility to sneak into a wild card, let alone do anything after the fact. But I love what I see out of the defense. I see what they're trying to do offensively. And I mean, in my head, if Quinshad Judkins can provide just a bit of a battering ram, I mean, obviously, he's got all the athleticism in the world, but if you've got a 220-pound back pounding and pounding and pounding on the defense, it's eventually going to break. And it's especially going to break when you bring in a guy like Dylan Sampson and you get him on the edges.
Yeah.
So I feel like that kind of heavy hitter factor back that Judkins could become could really open things up offensively. But at the end of the day, it's like there's a low ceiling on what we can do. There just is, But I think conversely, it's a high floor. This a damn good defense and an offense that's going to be able to make some plays. I think we're going to be in every single Sunday, outside of a couple of pitches go wrong.
That's gonna be another question. Like, okay, this is gonna be a brutal stretch. How brutal is it? Are we talking? Yeah. Are they losing these games by 2+ scores, or are they fighting to the very end? My suspicion is they are, again, stealing that Steelers identity. They're going to be in it to the end. And what people are going to hate is the fact that it's going to be a lot more last second or fourth quarter losses where they're going to test your emotions and all these things, as opposed to, hey, it's the third quarter. I know this is how it's going to end. I've sort of made my peace with the fact that they're losing.
Yeah.
I think, certainly, look, I will say, if nothing else, Sunday against Bengals was fun. Like,
it was a fun game.
I will sign up for fun football all the time. Yep. I want them to win more than they lose, but still, I will take those, even if they're going to give you the gut punch in some form or fashion. But that was fun. I'm hoping we get these. If nothing else, this stretch of 6 is fun football.
Yeah. Well, and not just that, it's fun football with legitimate talent that you see being here long-term in the future. Like, there's so many good pieces of this team moving forward, and there's so many things to like about the coaching staff. If you can't love the process, the NFL is going to be tough, because there's so few teams that just like lock into that success and have prolonged success. So there's so much up and down in the NFL. If you can't enjoy the process and you can't see the silver linings to a loss, I mean, you need to get into a different business, man. You're not going to win the Super Bowl every year. You're not going to go undefeated every year. Everything has positives to take away from it. As long as the young guys get better and stay healthy, that's all I'm looking for this year. I want to win as many games as possible. I want to see Flacco do great, play all 17 games, but just give me steady improvement, give me good health, and a good foundation for the future, man. It's right there for him,
Right. I mean, if you look ahead and you say, we come to the end of the season, which is months and months away, and you go, Harold Fann's good, Dylan Sampson's good, Carson Schwarzenegger's good, Mason Graham is good. It changes, hopefully some of these other guys are like Ronnie Hickman. Hey, we're talking contract extension with Ronnie Hickman.
Or McGuire.
Or Greg Newsome. And now you're sitting here going into the off season and the draft. Even if you have to take a quarterback, even if we're still sitting there going, I don't know who the quarterback's going to be, and you're talking about rebuilding the line. Okay, but so many of these other things are taken care of that now we're just talking about adding as opposed to rebuilding or retooling, or however, whatever variation of that we're talking about. But you're talking about adding to a talented team as opposed to finding the talent. And from 2023 draft to now, they've added a lot of guys who can be good football players, and that's with losing at least 2 of them already for the season in Martin Emerson, and then he wasn't
JOK.
Well, he was 2021. No, I was gonna say and the linebacker that what's his face
Nate Watson. Yeah.
Who,
Nathaniel Watson.
I thought was a crappy pick when they made it, but hell, he wasn't looking really strong in the preseason. Lose him already for the season. So, that's another guy that hopefully will be back, and hopefully will be able to, you worry about those guys, those type of injuries, not the specified type of injury, not like you got a lower extremity, thing, but just that those guys might get lost in the shuffle because they're constantly bringing in new guys. But those are all players that can come back and be good. We'll see with Martin Emerson, Achilles. That's always, worrying. But that we're talking about adding to the roster, getting better, all those things. And now we're having fun as opposed to dreading going through another season and then waiting. Like, there were any number of people who were ready to be predisposed to hating the season because yes, you have 2 rookie quarterbacks, but short of a very small population of people, no one thought they were the quarterbacks, and then we're waiting another year to get that guy. So we'll see. But fun so far. Rookies good so far. I'm hoping they can add to it, that we get more out of these guys, that we're going to suddenly get more explosive plays, that Isaiah Bond is hopefully going to have an 80-yard touchdown or something this week, or something, and just continues to build from there, and that hopefully they come out with a win against the Ravens.
Yeah, amen to that. It's definitely going to be tough, but it's certainly not insurmountable. We beat them last year with Jameis Winston. I feel like
awful team.
Flacco. Yeah, and you know what? I got to tell you, it still irks me to some degree. I absolutely love what we did in the draft. I feel like we had a phenomenal draft. But to think that either the Steelers or the Ravens prevented us from getting Cam Ward stings a little bit. It pisses me off a little bit.
But the thing, like, I'll finish with this. Look, I will defend this to the hilt. The Browns got more for Travis Hunter than the Green Bay Packers did for Micah Parsons.
Yep.
So, like, the people are like, the Browns should have traded Myles Garrett, and I think ultimately the Browns would have gotten more for Myles Garrett simply because Andrew Berry's not a dope. But even so, unless you think Kenny Clark is a second-round pick equivalent player, and the Browns wouldn't have wanted that anyway. But let's say you think, and if he's a third, it doesn't come close to what the Browns got in that trade. They got, for Travis Hunter, they got 5th pick, 36th pick, and a first rounder, which, look, the Jacksonville Jaguars won their first game.
Yeah.
Carolina looked awful. Trevor Lawrence still stinks. Like, he still is not good. So I don't know how far this is going to go. I would not be shocked if the Jaguars, one, don't make the playoffs, even that crappy AFC South, which irritates me that they play in the AFC South. But two, that the Browns get that other pick, and it's not in the early, mid-teen area, or maybe better than that. If they get injured, they suffer some injuries. That is way more than what is.
Basically, 2 second-round picks.
Yes.
And Green Bay's going to be drafted late. That blows my mind.
30th, maybe 30th, 30. Like, right now, after that pick was made, and based on the first game, we'll see. My immediate thought was, if you're either picking Green Bay or Philadelphia for the Super Bowl. And my immediate reaction was Green Bay, who has the youngest roster in the entire league, and then just added Micah Parsons. So, the Browns got way more for Travis Hunter. So, like, if you traded Myles Garrett and would have been to a team that's good, you would have gotten probably less, or maybe barely the same amount that you got for trading Travis Hunter. It's an insane proposal to me, and it shows why you don't make that trade. It's easy. Like, it cannot be easier. And it also, he better be really good for Jacksonville, because that's an insane amount to give up. But, like,
I keep being incredible.
If the Browns didn't need a quarterback, they wouldn't have made that trade. To which I would counter and say, if they did not make that trade, I don't care the circumstances. I would have wanted to kill Andrew Berry because of the amount they got for him. That's an insane haul.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Mason Graham, Quinshon Judkins, and who the hell knows? Like, this next first round pick could be anywhere from, realistically, probably somewhere in the 5 to 8 range down to the early 20s. But I'd still
trade up. It still sets you up. And God forbid they don't, and they either get the quarterback they want, or it's on the roster already somehow, some way, and you got 2 picks that you get to just play with. Okay, now I'm willing to listen to your Caleb Downs conversation. I'll listen. I still want linemen, but at least I'm willing to listen at that point. That is insane to me that people are like, and I get why it's the Cowboys and Jerry Jones mentioned at his press conference to try to compare it to the Herschel Walker thing. The Browns made up way better.
Way better.
So, we'll see what happens. Look, as much as I want the Browns to win, I want Jacksonville to lose with every ounce of my being every week. I don't know who they play this week, but I want the Jacksonville Jaguars to lose, and lose badly.
Look, just keep Trevor Lawrence upright and healthy, because Mac Jones is obnoxiously productive on that team. That's Mac Jones is the guy that Brian Thomas went off with. I want Mac Jones on the sideline, Pete. I don't need any sort of passing attack.
Is Mac Jones on the 49ers or something?
Oh, he is on the 49ers. Who's Jacksonville's backup now?
Let's find out who Jacksonville's backup is, because I'm hoping it's somebody even worse.
It's possible. It's definitely
possible. Baby, it goes from Trevor Lawrence to Nick Mullins to Seth Hennigan. Go ahead and take out Trevor Lawrence.
Hell yeah. Let's get Greg Williams. Let's get Greg Williams sending headhunters out there. Let's go.
So yeah, I mean, like, I don't have a whole lot of faith in Jacksonville from what I've seen. So I love that trade so much. There's no way you don't take that trade, whether the Browns had a quarterback or not. So I'm genuinely hoping that works out for the best. But yeah, that's where we're at.
All right. Well, Pete, it is always a pleasure, my good sir. Thank you so much to the OBR Streaming Network for hosting us tonight. Me and Pete are going to be back next Tuesday, same time, 8 to 10. And hopefully we'll be talking about a Cleveland Browns victory over the Baltimore Ravens. Peter, always a pleasure, my good sir. You have a good week, and I'll talk to you later, buddy.
Take it easy.
My man. Take it easy, Browns fans.